right, we're on. I'm gonna pop out of the way. Still one more time, Richard. Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. A couple of announcements. Please check our website at www.umc.org. I'm sorry, I messed up. InmanUMCSC.org. That's InmanUMCSC.org. There are some people who are not able to get this on Facebook Live. You will be able to get this service on our on our website shortly after we are finished with this service. But I'm so glad that you're here watching, and I hope that you will be inspired and that you will feel the presence of God. Amen? You gotta say amen, Justin.
Amen.
All right.
We'll be singing a hymn called Were You There? Feel free to sing along.
Were you there when they crucified
reading this morning is taken from Matthew chapter 27, verses 11 through 54. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You have said so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted. And they had then a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus who is called Christ?" For he knew that it was out of envy that they had delivered him up. Besides, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream." Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus who is called Christ?" They all said, "Let him be crucified." And he said, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." And all the people answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." Then he released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, delivered him to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and put a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spit on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watch over him there. And over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests, with the scribes and elders, mocked him, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he desires him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani?" That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "This man is calling Elijah." And one of them at once ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." You've heard the ancient story. Wasn't it a pity and a shame? And he never said a mumbling word. Wasn't it a pity and a shame? And he never said a mumbling word. Not a word. Not a word. Not a They pierced him in the side, and he never said a mumbling word. They pierced him in the side, and he never said a mumbling word. Not a word. Not a word. Not a His blood came trickling down, and he never said a mumbling word. His blood came trickling down, and he never said a mumbling word. Not a word. Not a word. Not a He bowed his head and died, and he never said a mumbling word. He bowed his head and died,
An author and photographer named Do Zantamata, she once said, "It is only in our darkest hours that we may discover the true strength of the brilliant light within ourselves that can never, ever be dimmed." Brothers and sisters, the whole world is living dark hours with this pandemic. And some of us are living dark hours that have nothing to do with this pandemic, and the pandemic has just made it worse. So I need to ask you, what are you discovering about the world? What are you discovering about our church? What are you discovering about others? And what are you discovering about ourselves or yourself? And what more do we need to do to be that brilliant light in these dark hours? In his darkest hours, Jesus kept on being the light. Even when some of the religious leaders conspired against him, because Jesus was causing a stir by speaking truth to power, and by empowering the poor and liberating the oppressed and giving voice to the marginalized and helping the sick and feeding the hungry, the religious leaders were upset because Jesus was doing more than just charity. Jesus was inspiring a revolution, and these leaders convinced Judas to betray Jesus, a man who Jesus loved and cared for, a man who was part of Jesus' inner circle. And they convinced a crowd, not all people, but enough people to turn on him. Some who waved palm leaves and palm branches of hope are now pointing fingers of fear and anger. And despite his dark hour, Jesus kept on being the light, and he chose grace over disappointment, and he never condemned the leaders, Judas, or the crowd. Jesus kept being the light. Even when empire showed itself, as Pontius Pilate washed his hands clean of the situation, and he washed his hands clean of the situation because he didn't care whether or not Jesus was innocent. He was more interested in maintaining power than pursuing justice. And even when the disciples abandoned him and they were nowhere to be found, and Peter denied ever knowing him, and even when Jesus was beaten and those who helped was too afraid to get involved and he was left dead on the cross, and even when a criminal and spectators mocked him and Roman soldiers continued to ridicule him to further humiliate him, he chose love over anger and even gave a criminal on the cross words of hope. And when death got a hold of him and the earth shook and the temple curtain was torn, a centurion, not his disciples, a centurion, not the crowds used to celebrate him, but a centurion, not the religious leaders, a centurion, and not the people he helped, but one Roman soldier acknowledged not just who Jesus was, but what Jesus was doing. Friends, Jesus kept being a light, and he showed the whole world that love shines brightest in our darkest hours. Let me say that again. Jesus showed the world that love shines brightest in our darkest hours. Think about your darkest hours. Most of you got through it because someone loved you through it. Friends, my darkest hour was when my dad passed away, and my wife loved me through it. And Jesus showed the world that grace overcomes hate and fear and apathy, because grace says, I'm not going to let hate, and I'm not going to let fear, and I'm not going to let apathy define who I am. See, grace is taking control and deciding that you're going to be defined by love. and that you're going to be defined by kindness, and that you're going to be defined by accepting all people. And brothers and sisters, Easter will show the world, a world in darkness, that love and grace cannot be stopped, not even by death. Because again, right now, all the world is living through a dark hour. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought fear as people worry about their lives and as others worry about their livelihoods. It has brought hurt as people have lost loved ones and as we struggle with what to do. And the pandemic has even brought hate as people lash out against one another. These are dark hours. But be a light of love and believe that we will get through this together. We will get through this together by supporting one another with phone calls and letters or messages that encourage one another. This is a dark hour, but be a light of grace and help those who are afraid and who are hurting and find ways to help them out. These may be dark hours. So therefore, be a light of hope. Friends, we have faced dark hours before. You have as individuals, we have as a country, and we have as a world. And we should all be singing that old civil rights hymn, "We Shall Overcome." Because despite this pandemic, Easter is going to get here. Easter is going to get here, not because it appears on the calendar on April 12th. Because friends, let's be honest, April 12th will not feel like Easter. But Easter will get here. Easter will get here because love will shine and resurrect us and new life will begin. Easter will get here because grace will shine and resurrect us and our relationships will endure. Easter will get here because compassion will shine and resurrect us and people will be helped. Easter is coming. We will get through this darkness together. Therefore, keep on being the light you're called to be. Amen? Amen. Friends, we have a prayer that we've written. I will say the leader part, and if you like, you will say, "Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayers." Justin and Richard will be saying it in the background. If you want, you can even type it. So let us go to God in prayer. The coronavirus has brought darkness of fear as it threatens the lives of people we love. May we bring the light of grace by loving one another.
Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayers.
The coronavirus has brought the darkness of anxiety as people lose their jobs and businesses. May we bring the light of compassion by supporting businesses any way we can.
Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayers.
The coronavirus has brought the darkness of loneliness as we practice social distancing to minimize the spread. May we bring the light of peace through our phone calls and messages.
Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayers.
The coronavirus has brought darkness, but there were people already struggling with hunger, homelessness, and injustice. May we bring a light of hope because they are not forgotten.
Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayers.
The coronavirus has brought darkness, but we are the hands and feet of God. We hold to the light of love that was, even on his darkest days, exemplified in Jesus.
Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayers.
Brothers and sisters, we will get through this together. Until next week, amen.
Amen.
Amen.